Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm Tim Dennis. It's a Wednesday. It's a Supernatural News Wednesday. That means only one thing. We bring in a co-host, and we bring in the co-host with the most. Here's Mallie Fox. Hi, Mallie.
Hey, Tim.
It's good to have you back.
Aw, thank you. I love being back.
Well, we love having you here. And I have cards and letters, and actually I don't get cards and letters. I get emails, and I get, the electronic correspondence. It says they love having you too.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So we figure, by gosh, we ought to do it again, because otherwise I don't need people showing up to my address with pitchforks and torches and
Stop.
and things like that. So I suppose I should probably, have you back every once in a while, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we love having you here, Mal. And you know what? We got a full show today. I told a buddy of mine, I said, you know what, with this, and we'll talk a little bit of current events today, not much, because, we try to keep this light and airy and away from the realms of all things worldly. So we take it otherworldly, so you don't have to worry about things going on in the world. But I told a friend this week, I said, don't be surprised if with this whole thing going on with Russia and Ukraine, if there isn't another benefactor outside of everybody in the world that will help out Ukraine, like private industry. And because somebody had asked me, well, what happens if Russia turns their eye to the U.S. and decides that they want to start messing with the U.S. and try to bring down power grids here or technology grids? And I said, oh, you forget, my friend. I said, there is technology within technology. And we've had private industry working with our space systems. And I think, honestly, that Elon Musk and some of these other billionaires have been in bed with the government for quite some time. And they've been developing technology behind the scenes. It turns out one of those billionaires, Mallie, has come forward and said they're going to help Ukraine. And going to help the U.S. and going to help other countries around the world. And we'll tell you about that in just a moment. But I also want to tell you, I know.
You gotta make me wait. I'm like waiting.
I know. Only for a short time. Okay. And then also, I want to tell people, Parashare, we're going to give you a few Parashare stories today. It's real simple, folks. This is how we can do this. It sounds like a hostage negotiation now. This is how we're going to do it, see? Real simple. Either tim@darknessradio.com, or you can call it in, and believe it or not, we'll play your Parashare over the air here, and we'll weigh in on it. That's right. We'll actually pretend like your call exists.
Ooh.
Yeah. And we'll review your call and then give you an answer to your call as well. 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. Leave the message. If it runs out, go ahead and call back and continue your message. And we will just string them together. So we'll string your message together if it's more than I believe it's 2 or 3 minutes allotted for the message. So if you've got, a little more time that you need, just continue that message, call back and say, hey, it's me again. And,
it's almost like back in the day when you had to leave. Well, still people do, but when you would leave a voicemail message and you're like continuing it and it stops and it's like, press this to. That's exactly what it is. Or press this to continue. And you're like, bah!
That's exactly what it is. It's a voicemail service. So there you go. That's the way we have to handle it. So we've got Parashare stories today that came by email, so we'll get to those as well. Real quick, Mallie, before we get to supernatural news stories, I got an opportunity to sit and see The Batman before it came out.
Oh, how was it?
Oh my gosh, Mal. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to preface this by saying this. Not a huge fan of the sparkly vampire boy.
Okay.
I never have been. I don't think I ever will be. With that being said, okay, I had a little bit of a bias going into this movie. Okay, so
Now, I heard through the grapevine that this is like the best Batman movie.
We'll get to that.
I haven't seen it, but someone said, I read it somewhere, that they thought that this was the best one out of all of them.
We'll get to that because it is, we'll put it this way. There are fans of the comic book, such as myself, that have been waiting for an adaptation that is true to the comic. We've never really had something that's very true to the comic. And really, Batman is the Dark Knight detective. He is just as much brutal with a punch as he is with his mind. You know, he uses his mind to solve cases, you know. Mm-hmm. And you don't really get a good representation of that in any of the movies. And you don't really get the psychological profiles of Batman's rogues gallery either. You don't really get how demented they are and how psychologically scarred they are and just how scary these villains are either. You get kind of a cartoonish portrayal of them, kind of a sanitized version for children, which makes it palatable for action figures and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of refreshing to sit down and see a movie of the Batman that portrays it as it would happen in a darker society. And this is a very dark movie.
Okay.
Just so you're aware. So if you're taking the kids and expecting Adam West and Burt Ward 1966, you're not going to get that.
Right. But is it dark? Like, you know how the Joker, that movie with Joaquin Phoenix, how that was kind of dark?
Yeah, this is the Dark Knight.
Okay.
Times 10.
Oh.
Yes, it has a very Seven vibe to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it is dark. Very dark. In that, keep that in mind. But this takes place in the second year of Bruce Wayne's incarnation as Batman. And for those of you who are familiar with the comic, it kind of goes along the storyline of The Long Halloween, which takes place on Halloween and has a lot to do with Bruce Wayne kind of figuring out who he is as a person, and is kind of new to the Batman role. And it starts out right away with you seeing Batman. You don't have to wait. There's no long drawn out trying to figure out who Bruce Wayne is and then getting into Batman. There's no origin story. There's no, you know, we're hitting the ground off and running.
Okay.
Which is good. You know, and it's good in that you're introduced to characters one by one by one. And it's good in that this universe is a bit twisted from what you're used to knowing. You know, you're introduced to characters one by one and you recognize them, but you don't quite recognize them. So, and it's no great secret that the main villain in this movie is the Riddler, but it's the Riddler unlike anything you've ever seen, which is good. It's a good adaptation of the Riddler. And Zoe Kravitz plays Catwoman. She was born to play Catwoman, and this is a version of Catwoman that I think we've all wanted to see as comic book fans and never got. In that she's a more serious version of this character, and she's the cat burglar that we've all been waiting to see.
Okay.
So this is, I think, if you want to see a great mystery, mm-hmm. A great crime movie, a great whodunit movie, and one that will keep you on the edge of your seat, that is a movie with a good plot that has action involved in it, this is the movie for you. And Matt Reeves, who's the director and also a co-writer of this movie, did an amazing job. And Matt Reeves was involved in the Planet of the Apes movies, and he's done the most recent series of Planet of the Apes, and he's done some amazing work. And he came in when Ben Affleck dropped the Batman series right after Justice League, and did an amazing job with this movie. I only have one complaint, one thing that throws me off about this movie.
Okay.
Technically, it's perfect, Mallie. The story is the perfect story. Mm-hmm. Even Colin Farrell, who you don't recognize as the Penguin. You would never know that he's the Penguin. And I'm not telling you any secret by telling you he's in the movie. Every character that intertwines in this movie with Batman and eventually Bruce Wayne is perfect for the role. The story is a perfect story. There are little twists and turns that you do see coming and you don't see coming.
Okay.
And lead you on this chase. There's just one thing that's not quite perfect about this movie, and that is Robert Pattinson. he's perfect as Batman. This is going to sound really weird. He's perfect as Batman. He's not perfect as Bruce Wayne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which sounds odd. He's perfect in the Batman role. He's got it down. When you see him in the cape and cowl and you see his reactions and you see the way he reacts to everything, he's perfect. He's got the mannerisms down. He has the idea down. He knows the character, and he's perfect in that. What's odd about it is the time in life of Bruce Wayne and the fact that I don't think I get what Matt Reeves is trying to do with Bruce Wayne, and that it's his second year and he's trying to capture a moment in time where Bruce Wayne is trying to deal with his parents' death, and he's trying to figure out who his parents were.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't want to give away too much of the story, but I feel like Robert Pattinson got it wrong. There were too many emotions that were supposed to be thrown at him as Bruce Wayne. And he didn't know how to encompass all of them. He's kind of playing Bruce Wayne if Bruce Wayne were Kurt Cobain.
Oh.
Okay.
Wait, does he have blonde hair in the movie?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because you say, and I only say that because I just got a magazine in the mail and I quickly glanced at it and I thought it was Machine Gun Kelly, but it was actually Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, he dyed his hair blonde for a couple of different roles, but no, not for this one. No, he's got darker hair for this one. So I feel like his interpretation of Bruce Wayne is off a little bit. Keep in mind that it is his second year. He's still grieving his parents. He's trying to figure out who his father was, who his mother was, and he's being fed information about them that is throwing his world off. Okay, even with that, I don't know that he nailed that part of it. Even with that being said, Mallie, this is a very good movie. Even for, and I'm going to grade this outside of like regular superhero movies, I would give it a 4 out of 5. I think
coming from you, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a very good movie, and it's getting excellent scores on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of different places are grading it very highly. I've seen a few negative reviews to it, which I thought was kind of interesting. But for the most part, a lot of places are giving it very positive reviews. A lot of good performances turned in this movie. So, and excellent performances. Andy Serkis as Alfred, very good. I'm trying to remember the man who plays Commissioner Gordon. That would be, you see here, John Turturro as Carmine Falcone, the gangster. Jeffrey Wright plays James Gordon. Jeffrey Wright was excellent as Commissioner Gordon. Just a lot of good, solid performances, and the plot, I mean, goes right along. It's complicated, but it's good. They never lose you. So it's just all around a great movie. I'd give it a 4 out of 5. So
could you watch the movie and know what's going on without having seen like previous?
Yes.
Batmans? Okay.
Yep. You don't have to have seen a previous Batman movie to know everything that's going on. Reason being is that this doesn't take place in the current DC extended universe.
Okay.
This is its own universe in itself. So you don't have to have watched any other Batman movie. You don't have to be familiar with Batman. You can just simply plop yourself down, watch this movie, and be fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Batman, and I would encourage you to go out and see it. It's not rough in any exterior that you couldn't take the kids to, other than violence. It is a very violent movie. So I would, if you have small children, I would reconsider it, because it is very dark, and there is a lot of graphic murder scenes. So I would, and it has that heavy 7 kind of true crime horror vibe. So I wouldn't recommend it for young kids. But for teenagers, I think it's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So there you go. Let's head on to supernatural news, shall we, Mallie? That story I was teasing you about?
Yes.
Well, Elon Musk says that SpaceX will rescue the International Space Station if Russia tries to drop it from orbit after threats by Putin's space chief. As you know, things have gotten pretty pretty outrageous as far as the Russia-Ukraine war. And I guess we're planning ahead now beyond the nuclear option here, Mallie. It turns out that Elon Musk has said SpaceX will rescue the International Space Station if Russia tries to drop it from orbit after threats by Vladimir Putin's space chief. Dmitry Rogozin warned that Russian tech and expertise is needed to prevent the ISS from crashing down onto the U.S. or Europe. If you block cooperation with us, who will save the ISS from an uncontrolled deorbit and fall into the United States and Europe, Rogozin tweeted on Friday, following President Joe Biden's announcement of sanctions over Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. But Musk weighed in by replying to Rogozin's threat with the SpaceX logo. That's pretty bold. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When a Twitter user asked the billionaire if this means SpaceX would keep the ISS from falling onto Earth, Musk replied yes. He also replied to a tweet that showed the ISS without the Russian segment and a SpaceX Dragon attached instead. Good thread, Musk wrote. Russia is a key part of the 15-nation partnership that kept the ISS orbiting Earth for 23 years, but relations are at an all-time low because of Russia's decision to invade Ukraine. On Thursday, Joe Biden unveiled new sanctions that said he would degrade Russia's aerospace industry, including their space program. Roscosmos Director General Rogozin then warned that Russian engines control the station's orbit and location. There's also the possibility of a 500-ton structure falling on India and China, added Rogozin. The ISS does not fly over Russia. Therefore, all the risks are yours. Are you ready for them? He said in the tweet. The comments are an escalation from remarks made by the Roscosmos boss just days before, when he tweeted that Russia treasures its relationship with NASA and will make every effort to continue as before, regardless of disagreements between our countries. On Thursday, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson was also pressed on the issue, telling MPs, "Hitherto, I have been broadly in favor of continuing artistic and scientific collaboration, but in the current circumstances, it's hard to see how even those can continue as normal." However, NASA has sought to ease tensions, saying sanctions won't affect ISS operations. The new export control measures will continue to allow U.S.-Russia civil space operation. No changes are planned to the agency's support for ongoing in-orbit and ground station operations. In recent years, NASA has been trying to reduce its reliance on Russian rockets to send its astronauts into space, instead getting Elon Musk's SpaceX to build them. Kind of an interesting story, huh?
Mm-hmm. Very.
Very much so. Another story having to do with space. An alien boot was photographed. Boot. I used my Minnesota accent for you there, Mallie. I figure you're missing home. An alien boot was photographed on Mars by a NASA rover. It was a huge step in science when NASA successfully sent rovers to Mars. We're in March. I'm messing up Mars with March. To search for and investigate rocks and soil on the red planet and to look for clues to if there was ever water there. While the advanced technology has been exceeding those goals, the rovers have also been taking remarkable photographs and videos of Mars landscape. And some people are seeing things other than rocks and sand in those shots. Of course they are, Mallie. They're seeing all kinds of things. They're seeing giraffes and all whatever else they want to see in those pictures. Right. In fact, in a recent picture, the UFO experts swear that there is an old boot shown. Somebody just left one shoe evidently up on Mars.
Yeah, it's just like here in the States when you're driving along the highway and there's like one shoe on the side.
Yep, or up on a telephone wire.
Yep, that too.
Yep. And that it is evidence that NASA is hiding facts, that one little boot up there on Mars. Scott C. Waring, who runs the site UFO Sightings Daily, claims that the boot and some other findings he's observed are ancient alien artifacts. Of course, it's an old Timberland. They've been around forever. And evidence that there is extraterrestrial life that NASA is trying to cover up. He shared close-ups from NASA's own photos that show the old military-grade boot, as well as a statue of a person sitting, a machine, and a buried face. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm looking at the photos, and there's what he claims is a head is clearly just a rock. This isn't Scott's first time making headlines. Recently, he spotted what he said was an alien watching over the Mars rover, calling it 100% proof of intelligent life. Of course, everything pictured could also just be rocks, which it kind of looks like.
I mean, he's probably the same guy that finds Jesus in a ruffled potato chip.
Oh, do you eat that chip, by the way?
I probably would. I'd probably take a picture of it, but then I would eat it. Why waste a perfectly good chip?
Do you do the whole body of Christ thing and then throw it in your mouth and eat it?
I should, like a wafer.
You're inhaling the body of Christ very quickly. It's my Catholic side. I just,
right.
Body of Christ, boom, throw it in my mouth and away I go.
I am blessed. Inside and out.
I have the body of Jesus inside me. Yes, indeed. I know, very sacrilegious fellow Catholics. I apologize.
That's why I'm Episcopalian. We're like a light Catholic.
Yes, you're Catholic light.
Catholic light.
Yes, you are. We continue with the space theme. A former NASA scientist says there are alien ships in the rings of Saturn. Why wouldn't there be? Norman Berggren, a NASA scientist who worked for 12 years at the old shop, has claimed has claimed that there are alien ships in the rings of Saturn, but he stated with regret, science does not want to admit this. Wah, wah. Actually, I think I have that sound effect somewhere. Berggren served on the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, and it worked with Lockheed Martin on some classified aerospace projects. In his 1986 book, Ring Makers of Saturn, I hear they have the best wedding rings.
I knew you were going to say something.
Oh, they do. They sparkle. They are so good. He first outlined the theory that extraterrestrial craft had been sighted on the solar system's ring planets, especially Saturn. Berggren said that while analyzing images taken from the Voyager probes over the years, he found strange objects near the rings. The scientist added that one could even observe exhausts from the engines of alien ships, the spread of which would accelerate and reach a critical stage. A former NASA engineer explained this by saying that the rings of Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter were created to be used as a source of energy. Wow. And for aliens to obtain resources. That's why they do all those anal probes. Just saying. In addition, he assured that these ships can be considered as alive since they have the essential functions of biological systems, such as self-reproduction and self-maintenance. This is in line with what some theorists say, such as Arwen Nicholson and Duncan, Forganis, I believe, of the University of Edinburgh. Ooh, I think I cleared something when I did that. I'm getting old, 10 years ago, they suggested that the universe could be populated by thousands of self-replicating alien probes. In addition to the undeniable prestige and curriculum of the scientist, skeptics claim that there's a natural explanation for this. Others indicate that the probe movements are causing jaggedness in images. The truth.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know, right?
It sounds painful.
That does sound painful. There's only so much pain you can put up with over the years, and I'm sure Saturn has put up with her fair share.
Yeah, you're having probing and jaggedness in the same sentence.
Yeah, you just want to ship a bunch of preparation H up there to them and wish them the best. The truth is that Saturn and its moons are full of strange features, from the mysterious hexagonal cloud at the North Pole to the Shepherd satellites. Those satellites are small moons whose gravitational influence restricts materials in some planetary rings, limiting narrow regions. A ring material that orbits near a Shepherd moon is usually sent back to the ring, while other material is thrown out or ends up falling onto another satellite. However, sometimes something related to a number of mysteries happen. A striking example can be seen in an image that you can't see, which is obtained by the Cassini probe. I'm looking at it, and it looks spectacular, Mallie. I wish I could describe it, but I failed that class in college. The agency describes it this way: a bright breach in Saturn's narrow F ring suggests it may have been breached recently. The feature was probably not caused by Pandora's moon, 50 miles or 81 kilometers across, lurking in the lower right corner. It was most likely created by the interaction of a small object embedded in the ring and material in the ring's core. Scientists sometimes refer to these features as jets, mainly just to piss off Paul McCartney. Because these bodies are small and embedded within the F-ring itself, they are difficult to detect with the resolution available to NASA's Cassini spacecraft. Instead, its effect reveals its presence, and scientists use the Cassini spacecraft to study these invisible F-ring sculptures. Yeah, there you go. Let's see here. Oh, you want to talk some Mandela effect?
Sure.
Yeah. Turns out the most recent Mandela effect is the bucket list, and we're all losing our minds over it. Are you losing your mind over the bucket list?
Not at this moment in time.
Yeah, I can't say I am. The most recent viral Mandela effect has us seriously losing our minds, it says in this article on thevintagenews.com. This week, people took to social media in arms about the phrase, the bucket list. Some people remember the saying being around throughout their entire lives. Do you remember it being around for your entire life, the bucket list?
I guess I've never really thought about it.
I haven't either.
I mean, I know it's been around for a long time.
And other people claim they heard it in 2007 when the movie was released. I heard it before the movie was released.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was before 2007 that I was using the phrase or heard the phrase.
Right. It was definitely out before 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they saying it wasn't?
I guess. Let's see here. It says in 2007, the hit movie The Bucket List, starring Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, was released. The movie's title refers to the fact that when a person dies, they're said to kick the bucket. The list comes from the list of experiences or achievements that a person hopes to accomplish before death. Sure, this all makes sense to us, it says here in the article. A bucket list is a list of things that we want to do or see before we kick the bucket. So to say what doesn't make sense to us is the fact that the term the bucket list was first coined in 2007 for this movie, not before. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, that's not wrong. Or that's wrong.
Yeah, that definitely is wrong. That's strange because we swear we were making bucket lists long before 2007, and I believe we were.
Yeah.
Reddit users had a heyday over this recent Mandela effect. While some users swore that they had made summer bucket lists with their friends in the 1980s and 1990s, so far none have been able to prove that these lists exist and were called bucket lists.
I don't write down my bucket list. I just have it in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be able to prove it.
I don't think a lot of people have written down bucket lists, have they?
It's got to be before. There's no way that it's only been around for, what year is it?
Since 2007?
Yeah. It's been around longer than that.
You would think. On the other hand, the phrase kicking the bucket has been a saying since at least 1785.
Yeah.
The phrase the bucket list was also used perhaps for the first time in the 2004 book Unfair and Unbalanced, the lunatic magniloquence of Henry E. Pankey by Patrick M. Carlyle. A sentence in this book reads, "So anyway, a great man in his querulous twilight years who doesn't want to go gently into that blacky black night. He wants to cut loose, dance on the razor's edge, pry the lid off his bucket list." So it's been around at least in writing since 2004. We are sure that this book is a fun read, but sadly, we don't think it was ever popular enough to give mass market appeal to the phrase the bucket list, it says in the article. Even if it was a big enough hit to make bucket list a common phrase, the book is still only written in 2004, meaning the phrase would have only been used for 3 years before the bucket list movie was released. So what is the explanation for this? Is the saying the bucket list truly another example of a Mandela effect? Or is there another reason why everyone believes the phrase is so much older than 2007? The most logical explanation is that this is a classic case of misremembering, which I think it is. Perhaps because the phrase kicking the bucket has existed for so long, people naturally assume that the bucket list was also an older phrase. The fact that there is hardly any written proof that the term bucket list existed before 2007 shows that the movie popularized the phrase, and people naturally assumed it was around before the film, whatever the explanation is still threw the people at thevintagenews.com for a loop. That being said, we will never say no to seeing a bucket list that predates 2007. When do you think the bucket list came from, Mallie?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of weird. I don't know,
but it's been around longer than that.
Do you remember saying the bucket list back in the 90s? I don't remember saying it back in the 90s.
You know, I don't even remember what I did yesterday, so I'm like the wrong person to ask.
Okay.
It was like once I turned 50, my brain went click. But I mean, I can't remember specific time I would have used it, but I just assume that I've been using it for a long time because you've always had goals and to-do, almost like a to-do list of what you want to accomplish. So I would just assume that I was calling it a bucket list for a very long time.
I don't know. I mean, I remember.
Good God, now I'm going to sit here. I'm going to lie awake tonight and be like.
I know I remember saying it at least early 2000s, but I don't know. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know. Write in, tim@darknessradio.com. Let us know when the first time you think you said the word bucket list was. I'd be interested to know. I think it was definitely way before that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2007 is when the movie came out. I got to think bucket list was at least early 2000s, like between 2000 and 2003. I don't know.
Because aren't words used like before, you know how they're like, oh, the new words that were put into the Webster dictionary this year are, but you've been saying them for a while before they.
Yep. But at least 5-6 years before they put them into the dictionary as a common phrase.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. We have a Parashare, note here, a Parashare letter. Again, if you have an experience you want to share with us in Parashare, just email us, tim@darknessradio.com, or you can call it in and tell us yourself, 651-300-4977. Once again, the Parashare line, 651-300-4977. This one says, hey, Tim and rotating co-host. I don't know if you're spinning on a chair right now, Mallie, but if you are, just take 2 spins around while I read this.
Got it.
It says, growing up, I always was interested in the paranormal, thanks probably in part to the amount of X-Files and Unsolved Mysteries I would watch with my grandma on the weekends, as she was my primary babysitter as a kid. But before I was about 11, I always looked at it as nothing more than just good entertainment and nothing more. I grew up near a Native American reservation, but when I was 11, my family moved onto the reservation to be closer to my mom's job at a hotel near one of the big tourist hubs in the area. The apartment complex we moved to had probably a dozen other kids, including a few kids who used to live in the apartment we now lived in. So naturally, especially with how cliche the ancient Indian burial ground trope was in the late 90s, thanks, I am sure, in large part to Poltergeist, we would be relegated to, or with countless native ghost stories, especially as the new kids in town. But I always just brushed those off as good-natured ribbing by the neighborhood kids and nothing more. However, shortly before we moved, the grandfather of my stepdad passed away. And not long after that happened, my then toddler brother started randomly giggling and talking to himself as he would be in his crib and around the house. Now, obviously, that could easily be explained away as just a baby being a baby. What could also be explained away was his toys randomly starting to go off. He had a lot of those Fisher-Price style toys that would play music, had flashing lights and whatnot at night. Maybe the batteries are dying, or stuff in the closet and toy box in the bedroom we shared shifted around just slightly and triggered it. Well, it could be, but you never know. So those things I could brush off, despite the neighborhood kids, again, continuing to rib me with ghost stories from the apartment. Most of them blended together, but the story I distinctly remember is when one of the former tenants, a boy about my age, said that he and his younger brother remember hearing a little girl's giggling in that room and would randomly feel like they were being tickled and brushed by someone, but when they would turn around, assuming it was the other brother, nobody was there. The popular neighborhood story was that a little girl was unfortunately killed in that room by an abusive father. Again, super cliche, I know. But again, I just brushed it off as just stories. But one night, which is forever etched in my memory, made me think that maybe this isn't just a bunch of kids telling stories. I remember one night, I heard a slight tapping on my bedroom window. At first, I remember just assuming it was just the wind, like one of the idiots in the horror movies of the era, but it kept getting louder. Eventually, I ended up getting out of bed and opening the curtain and seeing the silhouette in the darkness of a little girl. After that, I just remember just waving at her and mouthing, "It's too late for my sister to play," and went back to bed. I don't know that that's the reaction I would have had.
Yeah. You know what? When you were reading that, it reminded me, remember Salem's Lot when that boy came floating with the fog and stuff and he was like scratching at the window?
Yeah.
Oh, that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah. He says, I didn't even think that my bedroom was on the second floor when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. After that, I don't remember any one thing, but I just remember the occasional giggle or draft as I would be playing with my wrestling figures or my PlayStation. So thankfully, never anything malevolent or anything, just looked at it as the little girl just wanting to tag along, like another annoying younger sibling. But I never said anything to anyone. I didn't want to feel like I was just trying to draw attention to myself or anything. We ended up moving away a few years later, and the little girl seemingly just stayed in that room. Maybe it was just a self-fulfilling prophecy or an actual haunting, but after that night, I will forever be a believer. I actually have a few other shorter experiences, but this ended up being far lengthier than I expected, so I will leave it at this. I know you hate that sort of cliffhanger, but I will be sending the others over shortly. No! Thanks for reading and wishing you a healthy and happy new year, Josh. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate the note. So there you go. We got some more Parashare coming up a little bit later in the program. Tell you what, we'll take a break right here. When we come back, the Queen wasn't doing very well with COVID. How well will she be doing? That'll depend on the ghosts that show up around Windsor Castle.
Ooh.
Yeah, that may determine how well she is doing. There's a new petition out there that the U.S. government should release UFO videos. That's coming up as well. And the brain scan of a dying patient shows that life does flash before your eyes as you're dying. That's kind of creepy.
Well, and I was also trying to think, okay, would I actually enjoy that flash of my previous life or not?
Yeah, I know, right? We'll get into some creepy stuff as well when we come back. That's coming up next. It's a Supernatural News Wednesday right here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio on a Supernatural News Wednesday. I'm Tim Dennis, and right over there is Mallie Fox. Hey, Mallie.
Hello. That kind of sound like the Queen.
Hello. Speaking of Mallie, the Queen has had COVID. You may want to. You may want to start getting your best pantsuits out and get ready for that role. I don't
practice my wave.
That's right. I don't know if there's auditions for that deal. Is there?
Probably not.
No.
I'll have to kick is it Camille to the side?
Oh yeah, it's a Camilla Parker Bowles, isn't it?
Yep.
Boy, that you remember back in when she first shacked up with Charles, everybody said she'd never be the queen.
Yep.
Boy, were they wrong, huh?
I know. Well, when you look at Princess Diana and her, I mean, physically, you're like, why are you going with that one?
I'm not commenting on that because I'm going to get emails if I say anything, and we'll let you do that.
Unfortunately, my email doesn't work anymore, so just kidding. I don't know. I think it's because I've been watching a lot of Princess Diana stuff lately, so I don't know. And I've been the woman scorned before, so.
Well, hopefully Diana didn't see the same thing that the Queen will be seeing soon. I know that seems kind of creepy. And I'm not making a lot of sense right now, Mallie. But it turns out that there's an antlered ghost who shows up near Windsor Castle when the queen or king is about to die. Now, if Diana would have been queen at one time, she would have seen this antlered ghost. Uh-huh. The queen may be seeing this antlered ghost sometime soon, especially if COVID's not treating her properly, or, she's near the end. She's what, 97 years old?
Yeah, either 96 or 97.
Yeah. And do you think, Philip was only prince, but do you think he saw this thing?
You know what? I don't know, but that's a good question.
Well, let me read the story here and we'll figure it out. It says, it's long been said that Windsor Castle is the most haunted of all the royal residences, with over 25 reported experiences with ghosts and spirits. These claims include sightings of Queen Elizabeth I, King Henry VIII, and King George III. Even the current queen has admitted to witnessing at least one ghostly encounter. While there have been reports of everything from hobbling ghosts to saluting soldiers and even stolen bones, you heard that one right, there is another regular appearance that will certainly send a shiver down your spine. When you think back across royal history, Windsor Castle is one of the key players, as the construction was started back around 1070 and has been used by almost every monarch since Henry I. It is well known that the Berkshire Castle is the favorite home of the Queen, and she's lived there permanently since early 2020. But if spooky stories are to be believed, she is not the only famous figure inhabiting it. While the best ghostly tales feature famous kings and queens appearing centuries after they died, there are many others that are just as enthralling. One such example is the story of Herne the Hunter, I believe, an antlered figure who is said to ride a horse, torment cattle, and rattle chains. Sounds like a lovely figure.
Yeah.
It is believed
he's multitasking. He's riding a horse and rattling chains.
Well, and tormenting cattle.
Yeah.
How many cattle are actually there at Windsor Castle anyways?
I have no clue.
I don't know. It is believed his spirit appears in Windsor Great Park when the king or queen is close to death or when the nation is in peril. So that thing's out all the time.
It's like, can I get a break? Especially with Andrew.
Yeah, really. Oh, Andrew's out again. Hold on. Let me get the chains.
Yeah, here we go.
Ring, 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 ring. The legend of Herne the Hunter follows that he was a keeper in Windsor during the reign of King Richard II. After a serious hunting injury involving a stag, he was treated by having the animal's antlers attached to his head until he returned to health. Maybe I need to try that. I mean, I got a lot going on over here in Minnesota.
Right.
Yeah, I need some antlers. Mm-hmm. I'll just put them on my head until I'm good. Herne was rewarded by the king for his bravery, but other huntsmen were jealous and decided to accuse him of theft and black magic. He was soon sacked and found hung the next day. Maybe I'll go easy on those antlers and think about something else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other hunters thought that they would soon come into the king's favor, but this never happened. So they decided the best course of action would be to apologize to the ghost of Herne. See, that went well.
It's a little too late.
Yep. So sorry for hanging you, sir. It won't ever happen again. The king soon grew tired with the lack of hunting success, and so the men who had accused Herne revealed that what they had done to the king. Richard II felt betrayed as he had believed the stories and fired his friend. While taking a walk in the Great Windsor Park, it is said that the ghost, complete with antlers, appeared before him and said the lack of deer was down to him, and if the traitorous huntsmen were punished, he would return the deer to the woods. Oh, that's a nice one. Herne's story was hugely interesting, and there are numerous tales of historical kings and queens also appearing in Windsor. While the queen herself has confessed to seeing the ghost of Queen Elizabeth I, it's a story of King George III that will tug at your heartstrings. Oh, I'll get the tissue ready.
Oh.
Yep. Towards the end of his reign, the king became so mentally ill that he was confined in his room for long periods of the day. Witnesses described seeing a figure looking longingly out of the window. When he died and was still lying in state at the castle, guards reported that they had seen him standing by his window. The story goes that the soldiers were passing the king's window on their duties when the commanding officer saw the distinctive figure of the king standing in his usual place, watching the parade. Instinctively, he gave the order, eyes right. As they swung around, each guard saw the figure and watched as the late king returned their salute.
Ooh.
Aw. Are you welling up by chance?
Not yet, but that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it's a cool story. I don't know that I'm welling up, but there you go. There's that story right there. We move on to from the eyes right to the skies up there. See what I did there, Mallie?
Mm-hmm. That was pretty cool.
Thanks.
Good transition.
Thanks. I've been practicing that for years.
Do you do this for a living? Are you a professional?
No. A lot of people have been telling me otherwise lately. A new petition is calling on the U.S. government to release UFO videos. It's gone to a petition now, Mallie. People have had enough's enough, and it's time for a change, they say. Mallie, that's what they're saying. The petition aims to persuade the U.S. government officials to release classified UFO footage to the public. While things have been moving in the right direction with regard to UFO disclosure in recent years, the fact remains that much of the evidence continues to remain classified and out of reach. Keen, it says, to see this material released to the public. They're keen to see it, Mallie.
I don't know why they just don't release it. I mean, with all of the phones and stuff that are releasing, videos and everything, I think enough is enough. I think more and more people believe in something, something else is out there. So why not just release it? I don't think you're going to cause mass hysteria or anything.
Well, you never know.
Well, until the big spaceship comes down and starts taking us, I guess.
Exactly. Yep.
Like in those movies, but still.
Until they're like, we're here to collect you all and take you to our planet. UFO enthusiast Adam Goldsack, who is from the UK, has created a new petition demanding that such evidence be made available. The radical transmedium technology of unidentified aerial phenomena, and that's where I hit this button here. That one right there, is currently being withheld from the American public, he wrote. The UAPTF-DNI preliminary report on UAP found that 143 out of 144 cases were classified as unidentified. We request that the new UAP office created by Congress make available all classified videos and cases so that civilian science can investigate and better understand this technology. The petition, which can be found, it says here, you can't find it here, but you can find it here in this article that I'm reading at Unexplained Mysteries, has so far managed to elicit over 3,000 signatures. However, it has also been receiving an increasing amount of media attention, meaning that over time, the number should rise significantly. Sadly, though, regardless of the number of signatures it does eventually receive, it seems unlikely that the U.S. government will make a move to declassify UFO video footage based on the petition alone. So there you go. Kind of an interesting article out there right now, Mallie. And actually, I have two articles that are similar, and I'm wondering if they're one and the same or if they're different. The first one has to do with a brain scan of a dying patient showing life flashing before their eyes, which is interesting. Doctors performing a brain scan on an elderly patient who suffered a sudden fatal heart attack during the procedure captured the world's first ever look at the human brain's neural activity as it died. And the results suggest that as we die, we might be seeing our lives pass before our eyes. Kind of interesting. The patient was an 87-year-old who suffered a brain injury and developed epilepsy as a result. And so Dr. Raoul Vincent of the University of Tartu in Estonia and his team used continuous electroencephalography. I can never say this. An EEG, Mallie. They used an EEG.
That's much easier.
Yes. To measure the patient's brain activity to detect seizures and develop a treatment plan. During a scan, the patient suffered a heart attack and died with the brain sensors still recording the brain activity. They said we measured 900 seconds of brain activity around the time of death and set a specific focus to investigate what happened in the 30 seconds before and after the heart stopped beating. That was according to Dr. Ajmal Zenmar, a neurosurgeon at the University of Louisville in the U.S., who organized a study about the events in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience. Just before and after the heart stopped working, we saw changes in a specific band of neural oscillations, so-called gamma oscillations, but also in others such as delta, theta, alpha, and beta oscillations. Oscillations are what we usually call brain waves, and certain brain waves are associated with specific functions like memory recall, dreaming, and meditating. Gamma oscillations in particular are tied to high cognitive functions like conscious perception, information processing, and memory retrieval. Through generating oscillations involved in memory retrieval, the brain may be playing a last recall of important life events just before we die, similar to the ones reported in near-death experiences, Zenmar said. These findings challenge our understanding of when exactly life ends and generate important subsequent questions, such as those related to the timing of organ donation. As intriguing as the study might be, the scan was done on a brain that had recently suffered injury and swelling, which could have influenced the readings in unknown ways, something the study's authors acknowledge. Still, the data is the first of its kind, and that can't be overlooked. Albeit the influence of neuronal injury and swelling, the authors write, our data provide the first evidence from the dying human brain is a non-experimental, real-life acute care clinical setting and advocate that the human brain may possess the capability to generate coordinated activity during the near-death period. While a single brain scan performed during the process of dying is not nearly enough data to draw definitive conclusions, it does track with other data that previous research with rats in a more controlled environment has produced. So that's kind of interesting. And I'm trying to see the other story I have here and see if it coordinates. If this is the same story. I think this is. Yeah, this is the same story. So
okay.
Interesting. It's an interesting story that they managed to capture. And I don't know what this means. You know, on tomorrow's show, we're going to have Mark Anthony on. We're going to be talking about the electromagnetic soul. And I'm going to bring up this story to him about how this relates, how this kind of file of the brain and relates to the soul in itself. I find all this science fascinating in the face of Mark making this declaration of the electromagnetic soul and the fact that the soul doesn't die.
Okay.
If so, what is the brain doing at that time? Why is it making a, for lack of a better term, why is it referencing our life in general, or why is it going back in that card catalog?
But hopefully it's good stuff when it goes back in that card catalog rather than some of the icky stuff that you may have regrets about.
Right. Yeah. It's
because that would suck.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna get a little deep tomorrow with Mark Anthony, psychic attorney, and we're gonna explain some of that stuff, and we're gonna go through some of his theories as to why some of that works, and I'm gonna throw some physical stuff at him from some articles that have come up recently, and we're gonna play a little what if and how stuff works, and we're gonna go through that with him. And talk a little bit about his latest book as well and how that all relates tomorrow on the show. This latest story here, Mallie, is kind of interesting too. Holmes under the Hammer host's farmhouse is haunted by a ghost child who coughs up blood. This can't be a good way to spend the afterlife. No. It turns out, and this is a show that's airing overseas, Martin Roberts' farmhouse is haunted by the spirit of a child who coughs up blood. The Holmes Under the Hammer presenter, who is 58 years old, called in ghost hunters after sensing paranormal activity at the 400-year-old property. A team rigged the house with 8 cameras and specialist equipment in a bid to get evidence of spirits. And within hours of arriving, expert Ian Lawman saw the ghost of a boy. He said he keeps looking back and smiling, almost as if he's wanting to play hide and seek. There's another child in here coughing blood up, so there's an illness that is connected to this house. I wonder if it's TB, tuberculosis, or something like that. That's really left me emotional, knowing that a child has died in that room. The investigation also appeared to show the spirit of a mystery woman. Ian added, when I close my eyes, I've really got strong visions of her. I think people would describe her as a gray lady. She's almost like a negative, he went on to say. Former I'm a Celebrity star Martin took part in a probe and used a specialist structured light sensor camera in an attempt to get video evidence of spirits. A stick figure was detected in various rooms with a ghostly apparition appearing to play a game. Martin said, "This is too much fun. They love playing hide and seek." I'm glad he was having fun with it.
Yeah.
Hours after the team took photos to secure further evidence, and they were left convinced the snap showed the figure of a lady with her head turned to one side, Ian said, "It's all of the family that lived here before who were haunting and walking around in this house." Martin is now in no doubt that there are spirits living with him. Kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go to another Parashare story here, there's an interesting story about haunted military outposts in Afghanistan. And believe it or not, this isn't the first time I've heard of this.
You know what? I think I've heard stories before as well. Well, not I think. I know I have.
Yeah. This is an article, again, from Mysterious Universe. And it says, war has always drawn to its stories of the strange and paranormal. Behind the stories of valor and battles, there are very often the more mysterious tales of the unknown and anomalous. The war in Afghanistan also seems to have certain places that draw such bizarre, ghostly tales. One such place is simply known as The Rock, which sits exposed around 20 meters or 65 feet above the desert and situated near what appears to be a looming giant rock, but which actually is the ruins of a caved-in ancient mud fort, complete with arrow slits and the crumpled remains of burrets. Captured from the Taliban in 2008, the isolated outpost typically holds a small contingent of U.S. Marines to keep watch and guard over it. And in addition to its reputation of being a harsh, forbidding place full of dust and grit and sporadic rocket attacks by Taliban fighters, it has also gathered about it an even more sinister reputation of being an intensely haunted and cursed one. Almost as soon as the Marines moved in, there were strange stories and dark rumors swirling about the place. It was said that Taliban fighters had been buried alive in the caves below, and that there were also numerous bodies of Russian soldiers buried here during the failed Soviet invasion of these lands. One group of Marines digging a trench claimed to have come across a human leg bone, which led to the discovery of another piece of human remains, followed by another and another, including skulls and whole desiccated corpses and skeletons, which were all believed to have been possibly Russian, since a stake with Russian writing was found. They would later find out that a contingent of Russian soldiers had been supposedly executed there in the 1980s after being found by the Taliban while using the rock as a hideout. Also among the macabre remains were found shards of ancient pottery long buried within the dry earth with more inscrutable unknown origins. With the creepy ambiance and all the bodies said to be entombed here, it was perhaps no surprise that these weird reports would start popping up amongst those stationed here in these badlands. Noises with no discernible source, objects moving on their own, strange lights, disembodied cries or screams, the sounds of footsteps or crunching gravel even when there was no one there, the sudden onset of heavy feelings of dread. The men serving here were often plagued with various strange phenomena. Electrical equipment was also said to often malfunction here, and that fresh batteries had a habit of going dead within minutes. There would also be heard strange static on the radio with voices mixed in, as well as voices whispering in Russian, as well as anomalous smells that one soldier claimed was like something was dying, and the constant feeling of being watched. On some occasions, machine gun fire or incoming rockets could be heard, but nothing was hit and none of the guns had been fired. There were cases of movement seen on the perimeter, only to turn up no trespassers on thermal equipment and no footprints. A Sergeant Josh Brown, who is 22 years old, once said of Observation Point, "The local people say that this is a cursed place. You'll definitely see some weird-ass lights up in here at night." And another soldier said, or named Lance Corporal Austin Hoyt, who is 20, said, "This place really sucks. The Afghans say it's haunted." Well, it's not like, there's a 7-Eleven on the corner and you can get whatever you want. This place really sucks, he says. The Afghans say it's haunted. Stick a shovel in anywhere and you'll find bones and bits of pottery. This place should be a National Geographic. In the front, there are weird-looking windows for shooting arrows. They say the Russians up here were executed by the Mujahideen. Strange phenomena were said to have been going on before they even arrived. The British soldiers who had occupied the base before them also supposedly had experienced such strangeness and even warned the American troops of what to expect when they got there. They claimed that lights prowled the bleak landscape, that phantoms and shadows moved about in the desert, which were only briefly glimpsed by infrared cameras before vanishing, that there were dancing lights that could be observed through night vision goggles, that there were often noises and voices from nowhere, screams or shrieks out in the desert at night, and that to touch any relics or bones found there was to invite great misfortune. During the conflict with Russia, tanks were said to be mired in mud and that missiles would fail to hit the post, almost as if divine intervention. Although the tales of the supernatural surrounding the haunted base are numerous, some stand out as particularly creepy. One Corporal Jacob Lima had a few stories, spooky stories at that, to tell concerning the Observation Point Rock. In one account, he claimed that one night he was startled by a chilling scream coming from one of the men. When Lima ran to investigate, he found a Corporal Zolik cowering in fear at his guard post. Zolik claimed that he had been sitting there and he had felt breath on his ear and heard a clear voice whispering something in Russian. The man was so terrified that he begged Lima to stay with him until his shift is finished. As they waited there together, Lima said on several occasions that they heard footsteps up on the observation post above them, even though no one else was there. At one point during the night, Lima was scanning the area with thermal imaging and allegedly saw what looked like another soldier with balled fists standing out in the desert. As he tried to discern whether it was friend or foe, the mysterious figure vanished into thin air right before his eyes. The whole incident was enough to make Zolik desperately request a transfer out of there. Interestingly, though, other men also frequently reported hearing disembodied whispers in Russian around the outpost. On another occasion, Lima was on watch and suddenly heard a dog that was kept there named Ugly Betty. That's not a nice name for a dog, by the way.
No.
Barking wildly at something. Thinking it could be the enemy, Lima put on his night vision goggles and scanned the night for movement, which turned up what appeared to be a figure in the distance. Not sure what he was seeing, he switched to thermal imaging and tried to find the figure again, but it was gone. When he went back to night vision, he was able to see the mysterious figure again, which had inexplicably closed a large distance in just moments. A switch back to thermal once again showed up no heat signatures at all, even though Lima was sure that whatever it was still there. At some point in all this switching between thermal and night vision, he lost sight of the figure altogether, at which point he claims he felt a heavy tap on his shoulder. Then he turned around, and there was supposedly no one there. Somewhere out in the night, the dog was still barking, which is weird. Observation Point Rock is not the only supposedly haunted military outpost in Afghanistan. Another notorious one is called Forward Operation Base Salerno. The location of the base already lends itself to spooky tales, as on its outskirts is an old Afghan graveyard, which is overlooked by two high watchtowers. Indeed, it is these towers that are said to be intensely haunted by what appears to be the spirit of a little girl, and is said sometimes it is said to be sometimes heard or seen wandering around aimlessly, either in the towers themselves or in the area around them. One frightening report concerns two paratroopers within the 2nd Battalion of the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment named Painter and Jackson, who one night were on watch duty when they were startled by a blood-curdling, shrill laugh emanating from their radio, high-pitched as to almost cause pain. The laugh was described as sounding like that of a little girl, and Painter would claim that no grown man in the Army would have made it. When the unearthly laugh stopped, the two men radioed to each other on watch, but it turned out that no one else had heard a thing. The very next evening, the two men were on watch duty again in the same place, still rather unnerved by what had happened the night before. As they sat there in the dark, they claimed that they heard movement and footsteps in the tower, particularly on the trapdoor that led to another level. Even though they were the only ones there, the room also allegedly suddenly became very cold for no apparent reason. This was unsettling enough, but then there came a call over the radio from the other watchtower, claiming that they were detecting a small 3-foot-tall figure wandering around the dark outside. Creepily, though, no details of the strange phantom could be seen. What did appear to be clear was that whatever it was reportedly seemed to be waving at them.
Oh, geez, that's creepy.
Jackson says he went out onto the balcony to investigate, but saw nothing of the desolate nighttime landscape and that graveyard out in the murk. A scan of the surroundings with thermal imaging equipment also turned up no heat signatures of any kind. After that, the scared men reluctantly continued the rest of their shift with no further such phenomena. Interestingly enough, though, although this incident was indeed frightening, neither of the men felt that the ghost was malevolent, but rather that it just seemed to want to play.
Okay, that's still creepy.
That is creepy.
that it wants to play.
Yeah. In this case, the figure had been small but rather indistinct, yet other stories add more eerie detail. On another occasion that supposedly happened years later, 2 Marines were in one of the watchtowers when they looked out and had clearly saw through their night vision goggles a young girl walking along in the desert night with a goat. But when they took off the goggles, both the girl and the goat were gone. As soon as they put the goggles back on, the girl was back, this time shockingly standing on the watchtower balcony, much to the horror of the guards. The event was so upsetting that these toughened Marines were supposedly reduced to tears and refused to go back to the tower. This is not even an isolated incident, and there have been other sightings of a ghostly little girl walking about, either by herself with a goat or with a goat, both always undetectable by thermal imaging or night vision. It's crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
But I wonder, because if it had that reputation of being haunted, if the Taliban or the enemy stayed away from the area so they actually were safe.
I wonder that as well. Yeah. The story goes on just for a little bit longer, talking about how there's all these, that these hauntings continue. But I mean, the U.S. has obviously pulled out of Afghanistan by now, but just bizarre hauntings there in Afghanistan. Weird. Speaking of other areas that have shrines and things in them, archaeologists have found a 9,000-year-old shrine in the desert in Jordan, which is interesting enough. A team of Jordanian and French archaeologists said Tuesday that it had found a roughly 9,000-year-old shrine at a remote Neolithic site in Jordan's eastern desert. The ritual complex was found in a Neolithic campsite near large structures known as desert kites, or mass traps that are believed to have been used to corral wild gazelles for slaughter. Such traps consist of 2 or more long stone walls converging towards an enclosure and are found scattered across the deserts of the Middle East. The site is unique, first, because of its preservation state, said Jordanian archaeologist Wael Abu Aziza, co-director of the project. It's 9,000 years old and everything was almost intact. With the shrine were 2 carved standing stones bearing anthropomorphic figures, one accompanied by a representation of the desert kite, as well as an altar, hearth, marine shells, and miniature model of the gazelle trap. The researchers said in a statement that the shrine sheds an entire new light on the symbolism, artistic expression, as well as spiritual culture of these hitherto unknown Neolithic populations. The proximity of the site to the traps suggests that the inhabitants were specialized hunters, that the traps were the center of their cultural, economic, and even symbolic life in this marginal zone. The team included archaeologists from Jordan's Al Hussein bin Talal University and the French Institute of the Near East. The site was excavated during the most recent digging season in 2021. Interesting. Got another Parashare here, Mallie, if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's see here. I think I'm trying to remember if this person wants their name read or not, so I'm not going to say a name here. It says, "Hi Tim, I just want to share this creepy experience I had. Feel free to use my last name because you will see it has. Feel free to use my last name because, as you will see, it has a bearing on the story. So just for privacy's sake, leave out my first name, so we can just say Solomon. That's what we'll do. Thanks, and here it goes. This happened about 5 years ago. It was summertime and around 7 in the evening. I was watching TV. My husband was having a nap in the bedroom. Our daughter was living away from home and doing a summer internship, and our son was out. So I was the only one who went to the door when the doorbell rang. There was a man standing on our porch, and he was holding a couple of books that looked to be bound in black leather. My first impression was that he was from a local church making his rounds, as they do at times. There was nothing unusual about him. He looked to be in his 40s, average height, average weight, just all about average. He seemed very pleasant when he asked, "Hello, Mrs. Solomon?" I said yes. Then he started to tell me how the year before he had the opportunity to take a tour of a concentration camp, Auschwitz in Poland, and that it was an experience that affected him deeply. Before I could say anything, he went on to tell me that at Easter he took a tour of Israel and was so touched by the Jewish people that he got to know what a beautiful country it was. He then handed me the 2 books he was holding and said he felt that he needed to gift me these books to show respect and to show the respect and love that he felt for my people. I looked at the books and the writing and the covers were in what I presume was Hebrew. I was a little confused because none of this was what I was expecting. I smiled at him and said, "That is very nice, but I'm not Jewish." And I handed the books back to him. I didn't think it says I didn't think it would be right to accept them when they weren't really meant for me based on his reason for gifting them. This is where it gets creepy. He responded by looking very confused and saying, "You're not?" He actually sounded skeptical, like he didn't believe I was being truthful. I just said, "No, sorry, I'm not." He just turned and walked away. I shut the door and then thought, wait a minute, how did he know my name? I opened the door to ask him, but he was already walking down the street. I kept watching to see if he would go to my neighbors, but he didn't. He walked by 2 houses and started cruising the street. He walked behind a car parked on the street and never showed up on the other side of the street. He was just gone. I went and woke my husband and told him what happened, and even he was freaked out, and he's not the type. He thinks I was getting a message, but what that message would have been, I have no idea. A part of me wishes I had accepted those books. I still wonder what they were. Thanks, Tim, for the informative and quality content you continue to produce. Also have to say I like the addition of Beer City Bruiser, even though he is an underwater needle pointer. I hope he becomes a permanent co-host. Well, he is there, Mrs. Solomon. So there you go. So is Mallie, and so is Jessica. We're bringing everybody in. It's a party. That
the more the merrier.
The more the merrier. That's kind of weird. I so you're not Jewish, but you brought books from Auschwitz, and that there was a message there, but you don't know what that message was. Mm-hmm. Interesting. It's I have to share too. When you get 23andMe readings, or you get readings from Ancestry, or not readings, but the breakdown, the
results, yeah,
the results. What do they call it? Is it the Ascani Jewish, or what's the rare Jewish that's in there?
I do not know.
I think our family's like 3% or something like that. And then there's some from my grandfather and my mother's side. There's German in there as well. So you can tell that there was some German Jewish in the family. I know so because my mother bothers me every single week that I never call, even though we talk at least once a week. So I have a feeling that 3% comes out at that time. Mm-hmm. But I say that to put a guilt trip on my mom before she puts it on me this week. I know I'm a horrible son. But you wonder if there's a book of life there that you were supposed to take a look at. And even though you weren't, you say you're not Jewish, maybe there was like you said, there was a message there for you to review. And that
but do you think that he would come back if it, like, the universe was like, hey, you really need to see this?
Not necessarily. There's, we're all meant to see a message at one time or another. And if we don't take the opportunity, sometimes it never comes back our way. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. I find that interesting. Sometimes we get a shot and that shot is meant for us at one time and one time only. And if we don't take it, it never comes back. It was just that was our opportunity at that point to change our lives and go a different path, and it may never come back. It's kind of odd that way. We move on, Mallie. I know I got all philosopher on you and then I just dropped it. I'm like, yep, we move on. Speaking of.
No, that's okay. I was thinking of when you read the stories and, this guy coming regarding religion to the front door. Once again, my brain goes to Poltergeist. Poltergeist, was it 2? With that creepy preacher dude coming to the front door? Yep.
Yeah, I know. Weird, huh? With the, is it the James Gray telescope that's up there in space now? Everybody thinks the Hubble telescope has nothing to do. It's just resting on its laurels and it's a big hunk of junk up there in space doing nothing. It's not true, Mallie. The Hubble telescope is still working and it spotted a space triangle galaxy. And it's actually, that space triangle galaxy is actually crashed in and created a tsunami of starbirth, which, by the way, Tsunami of Starbirth is the name of my new album.
Hey, I like that title.
Tsunami of Starbirth. That would be a cool one. Isn't that a cool title?
Yep.
Yeah. A head-on collision between galaxies has created a vast cosmic triangle in deep space, glittering with star formation in a new image captured by the Hubble Space Telescope. The new photo, which NASA released, believe this was last Tuesday, February 22nd, shows a pair of colliding galaxies known as ARP 143. It was named for the old folks.
That's what I thought you were going at first when you started spelling. Yep. Like, wait a second.
ARP. It was named for the old folks because they're going to be stardust soon. No, I'm kidding. Arranged in what scientists described as a space triangle that is spawning a tsunami of starbirth. That would have been a Bowie album, don't you think? Yeah. Tsunami of starbirth. By sharing gas and dust, according to a Hubble team statement, the two galaxies in the system collided head-on, fueling the triangular-shaped burst of star information, Hubble officials wrote in the image description. The pair contains the distorted star-forming spiral galaxy NGC 2445 at right, along with its less flashy companion NGC 2444. Well, of course, because 2445 is one more than 2444. I don't know if you know that or not, but 2445 would be more flashy than 2444. Duh. Just saying. This wave of starbirth produced by the collision, officials added, appears to be rare due to the triangle shape of, as my voice cracked, due to the triangle shape of star formation visible in the image. By the way, anybody can beat me up for my lunch money at any time as I read this article. I just feel like I'm right back in science class in high school. Part of the reason for that shape is that these galaxies are still so close to each other, and NGC 2444 is still holding on to the other galaxy gravitationally. It sounds like there's relationship problems here, Mallie. Yeah, one doesn't want to let go of the other one. I just think counseling is needed for both of them. That's what I take away from the entire deal. So there you go. Also in galaxy news, a funky black hole is spinning tilted. Evidently, it was a rough night for this black hole. Just saying, too much Jägermeister.
That's when you need it from your little soundbar. Ba-dum-bum.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't
with
have
your
it on
little
that.
joke.
Yeah, I don't have it on that bar right now. I'm sorry. I should have. Well, I'll use you for that. There you go. You just did it.
Yeah, but I was late.
Don't say that. You'll get Mr. Fox all up in a tizzy.
Oh, geez.
Just saying. Yeah, it's a. See, I gotta go to this one here. That's that.
There we go.
Yeah. A team of astronomers recently observed an askew black hole just 10,000 light years from Earth. The black hole's spin axis is out of alignment with the plane of debris orbiting it by at least 40 degrees, the most extreme misalignment of its kind yet seen by astronomers. You just take it to Jiffy Lube. They'll put it right back on. They'll put it on the machine. They'll spin it, and you'll be fine. The system is called Maxi JT820 plus 70. I failed that part of math too. And it contains a small black hole about 8 times more massive than the sun and a star that's about half the size of the sun. Astrophysicists recently calculated that the black hole, an incredibly dense object with a gravitational field so intense that not even light can escape, is spinning at an awkward angle compared to stuff orbiting it. The researchers think that its tilt may be a relic of how the object was born in the violent death of a star. Well, that's cheery. The main result is that for the first time, we measure a large, greater than 40-degree misalignment between the black hole spin and the orbital spin, which sounds like a song by Soundgarden. Said Yuri Ponttinen, an astrophysicist at the University of Turku in Finland, well known for their curling team. And the paper's lead author, Reading's Hard, in an email to Gizmodo. In this case, the likely formation channel is a large kick due to asymmetric neutrino emission. I don't know if you've ever gone through one of those before, but it ain't easy. To the black hole during the collapse of the core of a massive star, the kick that Putin refers to is the result of a supernova, the collapse of a massive star that birthed the black hole. The ejection of material from the dying star gave the black hole something called a natal kick, which is something I think most pregnant women would love when they start to go into labor. Don't you think?
I'm just letting you read it.
You just want me to be done with this?
No, just the thing about the natal kick.
The natal kick, which can knock the massive object out of alignment with neighboring objects. It is not much the hit by the explosion itself, but the change in the gravitational field that keeps the two objects together, coupled by the fact that the black hole, during its formation in the supernova explosion, acquires an extreme rotation speed, said Ferdinando Patat, who had an ABBA song written after him at one point, an astrophysicist at the European Southern Observatory, who wrote an accompanying you snorted, an accompanying Perspectives article about the new paper. I think that's as far as we need to go with this. All right. Before we get into the last few stories, actually, you know what? Let's do a couple more, and then we'll do a Parashare, our last Parashare for the day. Aliens haven't visited Earth yet, by the way, Mallie, according to this expert, because they's too scared of us.
Yeah. I think they just look at us like, you guys are a disaster. I don't think they're scared. I
think they think we're the hot mess of the galaxy.
Exactly.
Yep. War is stopping aliens from visiting Earth, according to this expert biopsychologist. Dr. Gordon Gallup thinks aliens are deliberately avoiding humans for fear of our hostility. I wouldn't blame them if they watched a Jerry Springer episode. I just think that they'd probably beg off. If alien life exists, it may have found us by now and discovered that humans are dangerous, violent, and ceaselessly engage in endless bloody conflicts and war, and continually develop even more powerful weapons of mass destruction, Dr. Gallup wrote. The University of Albany scholar thinks any intelligent aliens could see Earth and fear for their lives. He revealed his theories in an open access paper recently published in the Journal of Astrobiology. He writes, it would also be obvious that as a byproduct of increasing pollution, habitat destruction, coupled with endless wars, pillage, death, destruction, and the desire for conquest, that humans pose an unparalleled and unprecedented risk, not only to other life forms on Earth, but to life on other planets. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Jeez.
He has a cheery look at Earth, doesn't he? Gallup's views are pretty opposite to Professor Stephen Hawking's, who suggested intelligent aliens would attack and enslave the human race. The term flying saucer originated in 1947, was the result of a reporter misquoting a pilot who claimed to see a UFO. Kenneth Arnold was the misquoted pilot who actually said the aircraft he supposedly saw had wings. But just 6 weeks later, words flying saucer were headlining newspapers covering the Roswell incident, famous alleged alien spaceship crash as we know it. So there you go. Fun stuff. From aliens that won't confront us to monsters that will, we go to Australia, Mallie, and we talk about the Yowie.
Okay.
It's being asked if the Yowie actually exist in Australia. Over the years, there have been hundreds of sightings of a large bipedal ape-like creature in the Australian outback, although encounters with large bipedal hominids are mostly associated with North America and the Himalayas. Stories of such creatures have been reported for hundreds of years in countries all over the world, including Russia, China, and even Australia, where it is known locally as the Yowie. Yowie wowie. One witness, Queensland resident Dean Harris, maintains that he had encountered such a creature in 1995 at his home in Mount Tamborine in the Gold Coast hinterland. In the darkness behind the swamp, there was this noise, booming and guttural. It made my hair stand on end, he said in an interview with Australian news outlet 7news.com.au. On top of the noise, it was bipedal. I could hear it walking, trading around the swamp. He was just trading stuff left and right. Then it starts ripping foliage out of the ground and threw it in the air, threw it through the air. ABC North Coast radio host Gary Opit claims to have received dozens of calls from people with similar stories over the last 20 years. Generally, they encounter a gorilla-like animal. You could call it very hairy, man-like animal, but one that stands about 1.5 to 2 meters tall or larger, he said. They all describe a very powerful body, very muscular chest with the head perched on the shoulder, a bit like a muscular footballer, not much sign of a neck, but very powerful with muscular arms and a powerful body and powerful legs. So could there really be a new species of bipedal ape-like creature roaming Australia? The jury is certainly still out, but one thing is for sure, all witnesses must be seeing something. Exactly what that something may be, however, might be a topic for debate. So there you go. Let's see here. We got one story from Courtney Cox, who claims she has a spine-chilling story from when she lived in a haunted house. Courtney Cox was on Jimmy Kimmel Live and shared her story of a haunted house. She's promoting her new show, Shining Vale, which is a horror comedy series about a dysfunctional family who moves into a small town into a house haunted by demons. And I'm trying to see if I actually have.
I saw a commercial for that show. It looks kind of cute. I'm going to give it a try.
It turns out that Courtney Cox recently stated in an interview that she relates to her character in more ways than one when it comes to going through a midlife crisis and menopause. However, on Monday, Cox revealed to Kimmel that having a ghost encounter is another similarity. I didn't believe it at first, admitted Cox, but I lived in this house in Laurel Canyon, which is in LA, obviously. And it was Gypsy Rose Lee's house and Carole King's. So Carole King came over to my house and she said that there had been a divorce, that it was really ugly and that there was a ghost in the house. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But other people who would stay there with me, like friends of mine, said they felt an encounter with a woman who was sitting on the edge of the bed. And I was like, yeah, whatever. She says that a lot, evidently. Cox also shared that she and King had a seance, and she was so in awe of King that she didn't listen to a word. It's probably not good.
I like how King waits till she moves out, and then she comes back and is like, let's do a seance.
Yeah, really. When I'm safe and I can go home.
Yep.
Whether or not that seance worked is questionable, since Cox then revealed the spine-chilling moment when she discovered that she was not alone in her home. I was at the house one day, not being a believer. The doorbell rang. It was a UPS guy or something. And I opened the door and he said, do you know if this house is haunted? And I go, yeah, why? Why do you think that? And he goes, because there was someone standing behind you. And I was like,
okay, that's creepy.
Yeah. And she goes, I was like, let's sell. Cox recounted as Kimmel's audience kind of gasped. As for Kimmel, he responded, what a terrible, terrible UPS guy. Why would you say that to somebody? Cox wasn't kidding about selling her house. She ended her story by admitting, I couldn't sleep there alone ever again because she couldn't think of her house the same way. and just started seeing things. Yikes. Well, yeah, that UPS guy was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Dick move, UPS. Dick move.
Yeah. UPS, we deliver psychically. Just saying. Our last Parashare story of the day. And by the way, if you want to give us a Parashare story, you can. Just email me, tim@darknessradio.com. We'll get your letter on the air. Or you can call us, 651-300-4977, 651-300-4977. If it's longer than the allotted 3 minutes on the voicemail, you can just call us back and we'll stitch them together. And we'll actually weigh in on your phone call. We'll play it here on the air and then we'll weigh in. This one says, Tim, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. You can, and your guest host, that would be Mallie today. I wrote this in a few years ago. I wanted to revisit. Okay. The more I think about it, hundreds of not thousands of people had passed through our fraternity home, good, bad, and indifferent, people and experiences of college. Okay. I wonder if this is the same sort of energy that is attached to the house. I pasted the story below. Any thoughts? All right, let's go through the story. My story takes place 16 years ago when I transferred to U of I, which I take it as the University of Illinois or Indiana, either one, and lived in an old fraternity house. The house was built in 1932 and belonged to our chapter the entire time up until 1999, when it was sold to a housing development. Members usually counted anywhere from 40 to 100, with 30 to 50 guys living in at one time. After 2000, stories started about strange happenings of unexplained occurrences. From 2000 to 2007, there were on average 15 members, with 10 who lived in-house. I generally wrote off any ghost stories as ways to screw with the new guy. It's not a bad philosophy. Well, one January night, as our heating system kicked on, steam heating, I heard the noise from my bedroom radiator kick in. Nothing out of the norm, but then I noticed it got louder. Suddenly, I heard a female voice call my name, in which I thought the voice was right above me. At the time, I was the only one living on the third floor. There were sets of doors to get onto the floor, which I could hear. Also, sadly, only 3 females hung out with us at the time. They were not at the house that night. Well, that is sad, to be honest with you. I never looked up. I buried my head until the voice stopped. I decided not to tell anyone for fear of being mocked. Probably not a bad strategy either. 4 years later, while at an alumni golf event, I heard one of the alumni I just met tell the exact same account, with the exception that he was in a room down the hall from mine 4 or 5 years earlier. I thought, what were the odds that someone would make up an exact story? Additionally, in the summer of 2007, my best friend and I were in the house alone. I was upstairs and he was down in the main room watching the big screen TV. Please note, he looks for rational answers and doesn't make stories up to me. Okay, gotcha. He was watching TV and saw a shadow pass from behind. The way the sun was, he thought it was me. He looked up and saw no one. Another shadow passed by, and he looked outside, to which he saw no one. Then he saw it again, and it stayed still. He turned and saw no one. He ran upstairs and found me. He was white as a ghost, and he recounted his story. We went downstairs, and I saw nothing. But I remember it was very cold in the room. This was unusual for a hot summer day in a house with no AC. There had been speculation on my behalf, I think he meant to say, that with low membership and the house falling on hard times, that it was one of 3 past individuals, chapter advisor, a house mother, and a porter. All 3 had long passed away. Ghost stories have since fallen off, with membership totaling 100 guys, and our alumni chapter bought the house in Urbana, Illinois. Jim. Interesting story, Jim. What do you think?
If it was a female, because he said that their fraternity had inhabited that house since it was built, correct?
Yeah.
So then I'm just wondering maybe if it was the house mother then, because I'm trying to think of any other females that would have been associated.
Yeah.
Unless they murdered somebody. It was murder.
It was murder. Well, if there weren't very many females around, it,
Yeah.
It might be our reason.
He sounded depressed that there was only 3.
Yeah. There was only 3 and none of them wanted to hang with us. And then there's this. Yeah, it's I don't know. That's I think you're probably, you're either onto something or you're on something there, Jim.
Let's go for he's onto something.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Yeah. I wouldn't discount it. I think you're on the right track there, Jim.
I mean, it's interesting though that other people said that they had encountered the same thing.
Right. You're absolutely right. One last story here to leave us here on Supernatural News, Mallie. Mm-hmm. This one is more of a one of those ones that make you grit your teeth and go, "Oh my gosh, no." Not really paranormal or supernatural. It's supernatural in nature, not paranormal.
Okay.
What is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you randomly to your body? Let's just say you go to the doctor and they say, "Oh, by the way, we did this little checkup on you and blank, we found blank and we need to remove it immediately."
I would think it would be like some type of brain tumor or something.
Besides a brain tumor.
Oh, is this like a funny thing that needs to be removed?
I don't know if it's a funny
thing. Like they accidentally sat on something?
Well, I don't know. I don't know
accidentally.
I don't know if it's funny, but you're just like kind of like gross. Like you're like, ew, I can't believe my body did that.
Oh, I would have no idea.
Okay, well, I'll get to the point here. It turns out some New York doctors had to remove a tooth growing inside a man's nose this week.
Oh, jeez.
The funniest things grow the funniest places, you know? Mm-hmm. Doctors Sagar Khanna and Michael Turner, surgeons with the Mount Sinai Health System in New York, said in a case study published in the New England Journal of Medicine that the 38-year-old man told doctors he had been having trouble breathing through his right nostril for several years. Guess why?
He never felt it, though?
Well, he had problems breathing. That's why. Doctors discovered he had a deviated septum, a condition in which the partition between nasal passages is pushed to one side, and a rhinoscopy conducted with a small camera discovered the cause, which was a tooth growing on the floor of the right nostril. I can't even say it properly. I'm freaked out. The ectopic tooth, a term for a tooth growing in an abnormal place, was measured at about 0.6 inches long. So it's a little over ½ inch long.
I know, I'm trying to picture it.
The surgeon said they removed the tooth without complications, and the man reported during a follow-up visit 3 months after the procedure that he was able to breathe normally through both nostrils. The body just grows things in the weirdest places.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. You know, you always hear about unborn twins that are growing in weird places.
Yeah.
I was once told, I don't know if you've ever heard of pilonidal cysts.
No.
Okay, well, I had a pilonidal cyst when I was in my 20s. And they tell you, well, it's either because you drink too much Mountain Dew. And what a pilonidal cyst is right at the bottom of your tailbone.
Okay.
So they tell you, well, there's a couple different reasons for a pilonidal cyst. One is that you drink too much Mountain Dew. 2, it's because you're going to laugh when I tell you this. You're either going to laugh or be really grossed out and never want to talk to me again, Mallie. 2 is because you had a tail that was growing, which is a funny reason. I choose number 2 because I'm not a big fan of Mountain Dew. And 3, it's your unborn twin coming through your spinal canal.
Oh, weird.
Right? Isn't that creepy?
Oh.
Yeah. The body is a miraculous thing. We'll leave you on that note today. How's that sound?
Well, if you had the tail, I'd know you were excited or not.
What?
Well, because like dogs wag their tails when they get excited.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my God. Are you thinking the other thing?
I have no idea. I don't know. I meant
wagging, not.
Oh, okay.
Saluting?
I just wanted clarification. I didn't know where you were going.
No.
Well, no, like a monkey. A monkey has a tail, and you can't tell if a monkey's excited by. I don't know.
Oh my God, no.
I have no idea. It's been a long afternoon. I have no idea.
Oh, geez, Louise.
All right.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Fox. No idea where she's good. She threw me a curveball at the end. I have no idea. All right, that'll do it for today. That's supernatural news for today. We ended on a Mallieism, evidently. So those of you who have been drinking throughout the show, take two shots on that deal. That's how you end on your Mallie Fox scorecard. And we'll wrap it up for this week. Tomorrow on Darkness Radio, the electromagnetic soul with psychic attorney Mark Anthony, who has not grown a tail, and he is happy to see me. So that'll do it for today. This has been the best in paranormal podcasting and supernatural news on Darkness Radio.